Joining us now, Tennessee Senator Marshall Blackburn. Senator, it's so great to have you back on. This bombshell from the scientist, he found genetic data in the cloud on the coronavirus that China had deleted from the Wuhan lab. Yes. He says it looks like COVID-19 was circulating in Wuhan before China's official start date for the pandemic. And he said that it looks like, yeah, this was covered up, that they were deleted to obscure their existence. What do you say to this bombshell?
What we're doing is trying to get further information about this. And a couple of my colleagues and I are working on a letter right now that we're going to find out who they were collaborating with, get information from the scientists. This is the type situation that has to be investigated to see exactly what happened with this COVID cover-up that now is coming into full view. And you see the information that the scientists were aware that the virus they saw at the market did not match up with what they were seeing from COVID patients. The rats that were there, the mice that were in the lab, when they had said there were no animals that were inside the lab. And of course, now with this, with the genetic sequence being deleted, with that information being taken out of an NIH registry, and, you know, this is why we ought not to have been working with the Wuhan Institute of Virology, controlled by the Communist Party in the first place.
Yeah, Senator, you've been all over this, and Steve Scalise is announcing the GOP will be doing a hearing on this in the House. Jesse Bloom, here's a kicker. He's a virologist who found this virus data. He's saying it's more similar to the original bat coronaviruses inside the Wuhan lab and not what came out of what people say is Wuhan's animal and seafood market. In other words, there's a whole spectrum of different coronaviruses. So if Dr. Fauci can't emphatically, authoritatively say it didn't leak, it could have leaked, right? Why can't he just be open to that possibility?
And why didn't he come forward and say to Congress, we've been involved in this. Yes, the president told me to cut it off. I did it anyway. He came back. He said, you know, it's going to be your job or you stop this. And admit that and say, you know, I've got concerns about this. We know that they were doing research work on coronaviruses. And we have a lab here in Nashville that does research work on coronaviruses. Why was Dr. Fauci not working with the lab here in Nashville or the lab in North Carolina that were doing this type of research, as opposed to sending all of this money and these funds and trying to trust that the Chinese Communist Party was going to tell them the truth? Of course, after our diplomatic scientists started to have issues with what was happening with this lab, and Secretary Pompeo started to investigate this lab, then what did the Chinese Communist Party do? They said, do not come into this lab. They wouldn't let them in. They wouldn't let the World Health Organization come in.
Yeah, we hear exactly what you're saying. So let's get back to Dr. Fauci. He testified that we have not been funding gain-of-function research. But then, you know, President Trump at that time said, cut off the funding to the Eco Health Alliance, which was giving money to the Wuhan lab. Dr. Fauci resisted that, saying we don't have authority to do that. But then the NIH turned the spigot back on and reinstated the money to Eco Health. So there's all this sort of weird stuff. And by the way, and the NIH had a control of a patent on gain-of-function research that Dr. Ralph Barrett got in 2007.
Well, you're exactly right. And what you see is this chain of conduct that Dr. Fauci, instead of giving the information to us, he was lining up with what the Chinese Communist Party was saying in order to protect the Wuhan lab and to say they were not responsible for this virus. All of this is absolutely disgusting, and we are going to have to investigate it. Dr. Fauci ought to step down, and we have to get to the bottom of this so it never happens again.
Yeah, Senator Marshall Blackburn, thank you for your service on this. We're going to stay on the story. It's good to see you. Come back soon. Coming up.
Thanks.